This is the RPM Podcast, starring Scott Riggleman.
Here comes Scott Riggleman trying to fill that hole.
Tim Riggleman.
Holy crap. He's a freaking animal, by the way. He's got a hell of a pumper on that thing. He is a heck of a pusher. We're like a bulldozer.
And Josh Matthews.
Could you see yourself being a pool guy, though? The level of work seems
ridiculous.
Stupid.
And here we are again, episode 175 of the RPM podcast. It is June 1st, a Monday night at 8:48 p.m. We're getting a little bit of a late start tonight. We did not podcast last weekend, and we really don't have a valid excuse other than we were just flat out too lazy to do it. Unless you had an excuse, Josh. I had no excuse.
I got plenty of other stuff to do, but that's never ending, you know. It's like housework. Yeah. It's just, but
so we took a little bit of a break last week and did not podcast, so we're going to have a good podcast for you tonight. My name is Scott Riggleman down in Manchester, New Jersey. My brother Tim Riggleman is up in Farmingdale, New Jersey. Tim, how have you been?
I'm good, ready to go.
And of course, we have Mr. Joshua Matthews down there in Waretown, New Jersey. Josh, how are you?
I have mustard on my pants.
You always got some type of food on your clothes somewhere.
It happens. I have an eating problem. Just like an airplane, you know.
Well, I don't think you have an eating problem. I think you have a condiment problem because it seems like the condiments end up on your clothes, not the food. All right, we're going to do something a little bit different tonight. We have been doing the local Legends Racing Series. It's doing great. It's really doing great. We do have a few more guests lined up for the near future, but tonight we decided to take a little bit of a break from it and do something a little bit different. It's still nostalgic, though. We're going to call it the RPM Podcast Listening Party. We actually got a copy of the Call of Wall album that was made in like 1974 at Wall Stadium. I remember even as a kid up into the 80s, they used to give it out as a door prize. They used to sell it in the little Carol's Goody Castle underneath the offices back in the day. We actually got a copy of it. Josh did set up a record player, so we can put it on the record player and play it on the podcast. We also want to thank Kevin Ayers. Kevin Ayers is the one who owns the album, and he was nice enough to lend it to the podcast so we could play it. So we want to thank Kevin for that. We're going to play little bits and pieces of it, and we're going to stop and talk about it. I think it's going to be pretty interesting because everybody's always heard of this album, and I'm not sure if a lot of people actually listen to it. I've always heard about it. I have heard bits and pieces of it when we were kids. There was one laying around. I think at Shannon Connor's house, they had a copy, and we would throw it on every once in a while, listen to a little bit of it. But it's been a long time ago. I don't even remember much about it. So I thought it'd be fun to play it tonight so everybody gets to hear it. So Josh is going to go ahead and put that on the record player, and we're going to get started playing that. Josh, is there anything on the record jacket itself that you can read to us, like when it was made and where it was made?
All right. So, obviously the big title of Modified Call of Wall. And, it's some pretty cool artwork. Now, it's from DCS Productions. They have a P.O. box of 3331. I don't know if that's going to be any good, but that was in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, is where it was made. There's not a whole lot else. They have some black and white photos of Jenny Nykel and Tom O'Rourke, Gil Hearn, John Blewett Jr., Charlie Kramer Jr. Is on here. Just some cool photos. And it says the Modified Call of Wall. Hear all the sounds and excitement of pro racing at Wall Stadium. Listen to the professionals talk about their sport. John Blewett Jr., Gil Hearn, and Charlie Kramer Jr. Let's see. Now, the best I can figure, because there's no straight-up copyright on this listed anywhere, but going by DCSP-51979/1M, I'm going to guess that was 1979 that it was made. That's the best guess I have because there is literally nothing else on here, and we'll see if they say anything in the record. But going off of this is the best I got. I mean, this is like an unboxing of something from 40 years ago.
Now, Josh, what about on the record itself? Back in the days in the old 33 albums, they had that little paper in the center. Does it say anything on that, on the record itself?
All the sounds and excitement of racing at Wall Stadium and side one. That's what you got.
Real quick, Josh, can you tell us a little bit about the record player itself? How did you acquire a record player and how you have it hooked up so we can hear it on the podcast?
Not only did he find one, he rebuilt one.
Yeah, I had to repair. This is my dad's old record player, probably from the 70s, so it's probably about as old as the record here. I did have a Roger Waters album in here prior as my test. I don't own a whole lot of vinyl, but I do have some stuff. Anyway, so moving forward, the drive belt, you have that motor, the electric motor that has a big rubber band on it and goes around the platter. That was completely deteriorated and disintegrated and just garbage. So I got a new belt, rebuilt that. I can't exactly fine tune because there's the little strobe light that allows you to adjust the speed by the tiny increments. That is not working. But otherwise, the player seems to be working just fine. It's interesting. I mean, it looks very 70s or 80s, like the old hi-fi systems where you'd have a cabinet just, this is your cassette deck, this is the record player, here's the amp.
What brand is it?
This is Technics.
That was good. That was good back in the day.
Yeah, frequency generator servo automatic SL230 is what it
They
says.
must have been getting down disco style to Matthew's home back in 1970, boy.
Yeah.
Josh, I remember when I was a kid that we used to have like old records that skip, and one of the tricks was you like set like a quarter or something on top of the needle arm.
Mm-hmm.
Are we doing anything high tech like that to get this to work?
No, this does have a counterweight that's adjustable.
Oh wow!
Yeah. This is high end. I'm telling you. So
I have a question. Did your dad know exactly where it was when you asked him for it?
No. I think my mom had moved it down into the basement or something, and yeah, and I actually even looked into getting a new acrylic top because this one's all scratched up. They want $100 or more for just the acrylic top. No moving parts at all. Now, out of that, I do have it going to some because RCA out, and the signal was actually really weak, even going into our mixer. So I actually ran it through a headphone preamp to boost the signal a bit, and then that goes into the mixer, and that's how we're going to be hearing it. So I'll be recording everything at my end. You guys will be hearing it just as you're hearing me, and yeah, so we're going to hope for the best here. And there may be a few crackles and pops and stuff like that. I did take a little can of air, like the keyboard duster, to clean it off, and it sounded pretty good. I just have to make sure that the ground wire stays put because otherwise we get a little bit of that 60 hertz buzz. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, if you guys are ready, I'll drop the needle and...
Yeah, well, what we're going to do here, everybody, is we're going to play a little bit of it, and then Josh will stop it, and then we'll talk about it a little bit, and then we'll play a little bit more and talk about it, and that's pretty much what we're going to do here tonight. Because it is running late, we're pretty much just doing this little listening party with the record, and everybody's been watching NASCAR. It's been so rapid-paced. There's been so many races in such short time. It's hard for us to keep up with it and keep you entertained by talking about it, so we're just going to do the record tonight as like a little listening party. Go ahead, Josh. Let's start it up and see what we got.
Oh, and to Scott's point, I literally on the other TV have the Xfinity race at Bristol playing, so Scott can watch the web feed of me and keep an eye on the race at the same time. So, all right, with that, this is Jersey Josh ready to play the greatest hits of the 70s and 80s because disco never dies. I don't know. That's all I got.
That was pretty good, Josh.
That was good.
All right, so here we go. Let's see what happens. Yes, there are birds. Don't ask. I didn't design this.
This is the
It
sound
sounds like
of
one
the
of
New
those
Jersey
movies
pine
in school.
lands. A soft wind is blowing in the trees, birds are chirping and leaves are rustling as deer and other wildlife move about. Only occasionally is this peacefulness disturbed by a distant airplane overhead. But in a few hours, well, it may be a little different.
now you can dance.
Yes, it's a little different because we are at Wall Stadium in Belmar, New Jersey, where every Saturday night from April to October, the sounds of stock car racing are heard as the top drivers with the fastest cars meet and compete. From its opening in 1950, Wall Stadium has given fans all the thrills and excitement they want. And under the guidance of promoter Mrs. Jenny Nicol, the First Lady of Auto Racing, it has come to be recognized as the spot on the East Coast for outstanding motor racing. It all began when Mrs. Nicol and her husband Tom first caught the racing bug. As Jenny has said, it gets into your blood. In their case, so much so that they decided to build their own track. Soon after, in a densely wooded area in Wall Township, a 1/3 mile asphalt track was constructed and the green flag was hung out. Quickly, Wall's reputation grew until it has become recognized as the fastest 1/3 mile speedway in the United States. And it is also regarded as the safest. As a result, the competition over the years has featured the greats of racing, including such superstars as Bobby and Donnie Allison of the NASCAR Grand National Circuit, and Parnelli Jones, Mario Andretti, and Wally Dallenbach of IndyCar fame. For 3 decades during the spring and summer, the Saturday night air has been filled with the roar of powerful engines and the screech of tires gripping the asphalt. And racing enthusiasts have been kept on the edge of their seats. That's why it is said, to watch a great race, Wall Stadium's the place. But all of the excitement on the track doesn't just happen. It is the result of careful planning and preparation by the drivers, their crews, and all of the Wall Stadium racing officials and management. Let's go behind the scenes to find out what goes into making great racing at Wall.
All right, so that was a fun intro. What do you think?
It's more like a little bit of a commercial for the racetrack itself, and it was a good intro. It really was a good intro, very professionally done. I just want people to remember this was the internet back then. They didn't have internet and podcasts and all this stuff. It was just a way of promoting the racetrack. And back then, record sales were huge and record sales were big, and everybody was in the record. So this was a great way to promote the racetrack back then.
To catch a great race, Wall Stadium is the place.
Yeah. Now, Scott, you said they gave these away, or
they did sell them. They did sell them. I always heard that
order.
they ordered a ton of them. It was pretty much Charlie Roberts. Charlie Roberts used to help Jenny Nichols promote the racetrack. He was kind of like the way Jeff Gravatt is now. He helped promote the racetrack, do press releases. He did have a little bit of a pretty big radio show, a national radio show for a while, and he's the one that did this album. This was his idea. This was his baby. They did sell them, but I heard he ordered a ton of them, like a tractor trailer load of them, like an absurd amount of copies, thinking it would sell like tremendous amount of them, and they didn't sell but half of them. So a lot towards the end when the album started getting old. I mean, all the way up through the 80s, Tim, when we were kids, and even early 90s, they were still giving them out as door prizes. You know, at intermission they would call off like your ticket number in your program. Every program had a lucky coupon number in it, and they used to give them out all through there. You know, that's how many they still had from the day. You know.
Wow. Now, I will say, when I took the Roger Waters album off and put this one on, you could feel a difference in thickness and weight. This was a lot thinner for whatever reason. I don't know if it was just made cheaper or not, but
yeah, it might have been. You know, locally made. You know, maybe it was made out of a little cheaper stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But all right. So we'll move forward to the next part. What do you say?
Let's go.
All right. And down it goes.
All of the Wall Stadium racing officials and management. Let's go behind the scenes to find out what goes into making great racing at Wall.
Well, that sound hasn't changed. You can hear the jack rolling across.
We're in the pits, the area which once a week becomes a large open-air garage. It's here that the machines are made ready for high-powered action as the proper tires are put on, engines are tuned to a razor's edge, and last-minute chassis adjustments are made. The competition at Wall is organized into 3 categories: modern stocks, sportsmen, and modified. So on any given race day, you will find a broad mix, not only of machines, but of competitors ranging from anxious rookies hoping to make their mark to the seasoned stars who have become crowd favorites. Each class of car provides its own brand of thrills, but for 3 decades, it has been the deep-throated roar and the lightning-fast speed of the modifieds that have kept the fans breathless. But what exactly is a modified stock car? Basically, it is a stock-bodied vehicle with almost unlimited modifications. To find out in detail how they are built, let's hear experts tell us about these beautiful machines. We're going to talk with some of the brightest stars of Wall Stadium racing. Here's Charlie Kramer Jr.
Basically, the chassis is rectangular tubing. They either use 2x4 or 2x3-inch tubing. It's all handmade, and most of the cars now, they're using front ends that are handmade, and they either use leaf springs, torsion bars, or coil-over springs, things like that. The body is the only thing that's an original part. Like if you use a Pinto body, a Vega body, or a Chevette body, that's the only thing that makes it look like a street car, which the people can identify with.
And here's what Gil Hearn adds.
These chassis are all homemade. They're made out of a 2x4 steel tubing. I shouldn't say they're all homemade. Probably about 95% of the cars at the racetrack are. And they start right from scratch with them. They build a frame out of the tubing, and then they build the roll bars and motor mounts, install the rear end, the bodies. Most of the fellows are using Pinto bodies. You can use Pintos, Vegas, Capris. Any American-made body you can actually use on them.
What about the engine? What is used to power a modified? Again, here is Gil Hearn.
Most of the guys are running 427 Chevrolet engines. The reason why you see so many Chevrolets is the Chevrolet parts are more available than the Fords or Chrysler products. Most of the Chevrolet products you can buy right over the counter at Chevrolet. So it makes it a lot cheaper for the guys, and the parts are a lot more readily available.
And Charlie Kramer tells us in particular about what he uses in Kramer's 77.
Our engine is basically a stock 427 Chevrolet motor with a few changes, machine work, and a few other changes that we did ourselves. We don't have a lot of money in the motor like a lot of other people. You know, they're going for $7,000 or $8,000 motors, and we just can't afford that. We just go as fast as we can with what we can afford.
And John Blewett Jr. tells us what makes the power plant of a modified different from a sportsman.
The difference here between a modified and a sportsman, the modifieds are 355 and up cubic inches, and they go by 6.1 pounds per cubic inch, and the sportsmen have a limited weight, and they're only allowed 318 cubic inches.
What kind of fuel is used in a modified engine? Charlie Kramer Jr. tells us.
There's 2 good gases, H&H and CAM2 racing gas. It's about maybe 20 points higher in octane than normal pump gas.
The tires on a modified are quite different from those that you and I use on our family automobile. Let's listen to Gil Hearn describe the tires used at Wall Stadium.
These tires are made especially for racing. That's all you can do with them. The ones we use here are of a slick nature. They're 15 inches wide, and they're completely smooth, made where they get actually a better bite on the asphalt than you would with a groove tire.
But there is more to a modified than speed and power. When you're building a car capable of going at speeds of up to 175 miles an hour, there is another factor which is basic, and that is safety. Here is Charlie Kramer talking about the safety features built into his car and the personal safety equipment he uses.
We use a shoulder harness, a seat belt, a 3-inch wide seat belt, and a submarine strap in case you hit hard enough. You can come right out the bottom of your seat belt and shoulder harnesses, so that'll hold you in. You have roll bars, which are 1 3/4, 90 thousandths thick tubing. You have 4 bars in the side, 2 or 3 bars in the roof, side bars on the outside of the car, so you're pretty well protected. As far as the personal safety goes, you have the seat belts, but you also have a fire-resistant suit, which retards the flame. It'll keep you from getting burned for approximately 30 seconds if you were in the flame itself. And you have a helmet with a full mask, which has saved me a couple of times. I've been hitting right in the mask going down the straightaway. Small rock or something like that, but when you're going 80 miles an hour, it really hits you pretty good.
The fuel, of course, is highly volatile, so special precautions are taken to minimize the danger of fire. Let's listen to John Blewett as he talks about the gas tank in his car.
It's a 22-gallon fuel cell which has sponge-type material inside so that the fuel cell's ripped open. The fuel doesn't completely empty out all in one shot, and it has check balls inside the filling spout, so if the car is turned over, the check balls come down and block off the fuel from emptying from the car. We have a fire extinguisher right on board in case of a fire.
If you think that you might like to build a modified, you probably would like to know how much it's going to cost. Well, here is one view given by Charlie Kramer.
If you did everything that you could do yourself and you had a fairly decent shop to do it in, and then some work you would still have to send out, I think if you bought everything new, it would end up being approximately $10,000 or $12,000.
So would you, $10,000 or $12,000, huh?
I tell you, that was pretty cool because we recently had Charlie Kramer Jr. on our show, and he sounds exactly the same, doesn't he, Josh? And it was also great to hear a voice like Gil Hearn and John Blow Jr.
I think he stayed on topic there, though, right?
Through the towing business, and his voice sounded a little bit different in this. It didn't really sound like what he sounds today, but Charlie still sounds exactly the same, and so does Gil Hearn.
Charlie seemed to stay on topic there, though, right?
What's that?
Charlie stayed on topic in that.
Yeah.
He was so much fun.
But,
he really
I tell you what, he was basically telling the same thing he told there that he told us, 40-some years later. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So the first part of the record, they talk about the racetrack itself, and it's a little promotion of the racetrack itself. Then the second part here, they go into the division itself, the modified. What is a modified? And they just described it pretty good. So I'm waiting to see what the next part of the album is going to be. I wonder if they're going to talk about a sportsman or a modern stock, or if they're just going to go to the racing now itself.
Now Scott, you've obviously been around racing much longer than I have, as far as on the local level. Were the sportsmen, kind of an issue like they, back then in the way that they are now, or was it? Because I know you had much higher.
Not that I remember.
Okay, I just I know that they had huge car counts.
To be honest with you, the sportsman division didn't get to wrecking a lot until they went to the equal crate motor. Once you go to super equal motors like that, really the only way to pass is to bump and rub, and you got to take every inch given to you, and that causes wrecks.
Now, if you want to get technical, the cars that they race over at Wall Stadium now are the sportsman division, because they used to race tour-type modifieds there. They don't do that anymore.
Right.
And so technically what we race over there now was the sportsman division. It's evolved, of course, but it's still the same division, and then the sportsman.
That's why I'm waiting to see as this album goes on, because I think they go into like a time trial lap where they actually say the lap time, and you're going to see how the full-blown modifieds back there now are actually slower than, say, like the sportsman and late models are today.
Right. Now,
even though they have smaller motors, they have better, lighter components, and the cars handle better. They have better tires and stuff like that nowadays. It's weird. You slow them down, they go faster. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I like how Gil Hearn said, 95% of the cars are home built. His wasn't. He had a Troyer car.
Yeah. Well, it was home built, but it was home built at Troyer's house, not his.
Now, 15 inches wide for the tires. Is that the same? Is that changed? Where are we at?
They're 12 now.
They're 12? Okay. Is there a difference front to rear?
No, they're same width.
Okay. And then the other thing was talking about the safety, and obviously this is well before the Hans device and some of the stuff that we see nowadays. I mean, there was basic things, but
now you submarine belt, is that the lap belt?
That's the crotch belt.
That's the crotch belt.
Yeah.
I always call it a crotch belt, but the real name for it is a submarine belt because it comes up from the bottom.
Like Josh. Josh comes up from the bottom.
All right, Josh, let's see what the next part of the album brings for us.
I agree. Let's move. All right, it's going.
So that is a first-hand, close-up view of the cars that provide incomparable excitement at Wall Stadium during the spring and summer. But there is much more to the story. We're going to continue our look behind the scenes to find out what goes into making great racing at Wall. Each year, the season is brought to a roaring finish by the annual Turkey Derby, which is held on the Saturday after Thanksgiving. Let's follow the events of the day from the first ray of sunlight in the morning to the turning off of the last track light at night. Here in the pits at 6 a.m., the sun's first light is just being seen. It will be several hours before fans begin gathering in the stands, but already preparations for racing are in high gear. Lined up at the entrance to the pit, waiting to be admitted, is a long string of cars, trucks, and vans, most of them pulling a trailer with a racer on it. Others have the race car on or inside the body of the truck. As each team arrives in the pit area, they unpack their equipment and begin to get their car race ready. There is much to be done. In 3 short hours, time trials and qualifying heats will begin, so each crew will be working intently to be certain that their car is able to perform at its peak.
That sound hasn't changed, that's for sure.
No.
In addition to making certain that the engine is running well, the car has to be set up properly. Charlie Kramer explains why this is necessary.
Well, you have differences in a racetrack, like some tracks are flat, some tracks have a bank, some turns are sharper than others, and that'll change the way your car transfers weight, downforce, and you have to change your springs and the setup of the car to compensate for different conditions.
And John Blewett talks about setting up a car for Wall Stadium.
Being as it has such a high banking, almost the same as Daytona, you have to have stiffer springs into the car, and you have to set the amount of weight that's on the wheels differently and different size tires because of the thrust that's created on the car going down into the turn on such a high bank as compared to a flat track.
I told you disco wasn't dying.
At 8:30, cars begin to assemble at the pit gate. In a few moments, the green light will go on and the track will be opened for practice periods for each of the 3 classes of competition. It is during this time that the drivers will test their cars to determine whether the preparations made earlier in the morning have their car running at its peak or if further adjustments are required. Also, the practice periods will give new drivers at Wall Stadium a chance to become familiar with the feel of the track. At the conclusion of practice, the process of setting the field for the Turkey Derby begins. Because this is such an important and glamorous race, the list of 50 entries includes the names of great modified racing drivers from all over the East. Gil Hearn, Richie Evans, Charlie Kramer, Jeff Bodine, John Blewett Jr., Charlie Jarzambek, and many others familiar to racing fans. But only 30 will qualify to be on the grid at the start of the race. From such an outstanding array of drivers and cars, how is the starting field determined? First, time trials are held. Under the green flag, each modified will be given 2 timed laps.
Right now on the track is Jim Hendrickson. Jim will get 1 warm-up lap, then after he gets the green flag, he'll drive as fast as he can during his time laps. Remember, fans, the 10 fastest cars in time trials automatically qualify into the Turkey Derby.
That almost sounded like Gary Larson a little bit.
All right, here comes Hendrickson in the X3 off the 4th turn, and he gets on it. There's the green flag. Hendrickson backs it down into turn 1, off of 2, down the back, he's flying. Into 3, Hendrickson low in the groove. Now off of 4, down toward the start-finish line. That looks like a good lap for Hendrickson. As he moves into his second lap, he'll be trying to do even better. Off of 2, down the back. Hendrickson really flying out there today. Off of 4, here comes Hendrickson. The checkered flag's out. That looked like a great lap for Jim. Here's the report on the official time. 13.383 seconds, a new track record and the fastest time of the day. That'll put Hendrickson on the pole for this year's Turkey Derby.
Once the 10 fastest qualifiers have been established by the time trials, 3 consolation races are held to determine the remaining 20 starters. From the first consi, the top 7 finishers qualify. From the second consi, the top 7 qualify, and from the third consi, the top 6 qualify, with the 7th finisher being an alternate. In the event that any of the other cars are not able to run in the Derby, the alternate would be placed into the starting field.
15 laps, 6 to qualify. Heat number 3 for the modified. Wayne Anderson and Jerry Barnett bring them around. There's the green flag and they're underway. Bartlett taking the lead away from Anderson. Green running third. To get out of the backstretch, Jerry Bartlett, the leader of the 06. Wayne Anderson running in second. Tom Green challenging, taps Anderson's bumper as they go through 3 and 4. Hudson running in 4th spot. Harback is 5th now with Jim Hoffman moving into that 6th qualifying spot. Jerry Bartlett, the leader on the backstretch into turn 3 in the 06. Wayne Anderson running 2nd to the 15, 3rd to 71 of Tom Green. In 4th to Hudson to 75. Harback in the X90 running in 5th and 6th is the 11 of Jim Hoffman. Harback making a move on Hudson to go into 4th spot. Freddie Harback running 4th now, the X90. 6th to qualify here in the 3rd heat. Bartlett is the leader. Wayne Anderson running in 2nd in the 15th. Jerry Bartlett the leader in the 06. Wayne Anderson running 2nd to the 15th, 3rd the X90 of Fred Harback. In 4th the 11 of Jim Hoffman, 5th Steve Mahoney, the 78. 6th the 75 of Gene Hudson. And Jimster taking the 07 and 71 of Tom Green. Green picking up a spot now, moving into 7th. Bartlett with a comfortable lead at the moment in the 06. Wayne Anderson running in 2nd, the number 15 car. X90 Freddie Harback in 3rd. 4th is Jim Hoffman. 5th the 78 of Steve Mahoney. 675 Gene Hudson, and 7th now the 71 of Tom Green. It'll be 2 to go this time by on the leader, Jerry Bartlett in the 06. 2 to go now on Bartlett. Tom Green picking up a spot, moving into 6th now, taking away from Gene Hudson, the 75. Now the white flag will be on. One more lap on Bartlett, the 06. Anderson Green pressed hard by the X90 of Fred Harback. Hoffman running at 4th and 11. 5th is 78 Mahoney, and at 6th now the 71 of Green. Here's the checkered flag, the winner of the 30, Jerry Bartlett. Anderson, 2nd Harback, 3rd Hoffman, 4th Mahoney, 5th, and 6th the 71 of Tom Green.
And that's going to lead us to the end of side 1.
Okay.
So that was fun. Now I kept it. Now I heard the last name. Was it Harback? Because I thought at first it was Garback.
That's Harback.
Okay.
Yeah, that was Freddie Harback. He was a great race car driver from Long Island. He raced all up and down the Northeast. He was part of that All-Star Racing League. He ran very well everywhere he went, especially in New Egypt. He was real good at New Egypt. Tim, you remember him at New Egypt?
Oh, yeah, that's Flying Dutchman.
I think Tom Green was another name we heard a lot of too, right, Tim?
Tom Green was the guy that had Richie Evans' car.
Yeah, he changed it to number 71. It was a nice orange 71. Tom Green was also known as the ice cream man. I think he sold ice cream as well, kind of like Tom Hauser did too for a living.
There's some great names in there. Wayne Anderson. You know, those guys raced hard everywhere they went.
I didn't really understand that one part. They said 3 consolations, and then they announced the heat races. I think that meant heat races, or maybe they took cars out of time trials for that race, and then they called the heat races consolations for that particular night.
Right. Yeah, no, that was a little bit off, but I know that Turkey Derby qualifying has always been a little different.
Yeah, I think they took a handful out of time trials, and then instead of calling them heat races, they called them consolations because you didn't make it through the time trials.
Right.
But did you notice there times, like, what did he say, like a 13.3 something?
Yeah, was it 13.385, I think I heard?
I think Hirschman has the track record over there now, like at 11.99 or something like that.
Well, the legends do what? high 13s, low 14s.
Yeah, same with the Sportsmen. The Sportsmen are down into the low 13s too now, and the modifieds are down into the 12s. You know,
what's the factory?
Down in the 12s, like 12 3s, 12 4s. You know,
15 8s, I think, Scott, or for factories.
Yeah, I mean, 15 7s, 15 8s, somewhere around there.
I remember the first time I got a 16. My best was a 15-8, and that was in O'Shea's.
Oh yeah, I remember a good time was a 17-0, and everybody went crazy if you got into the 16s. You know.
Yeah. I remember slowly trying to make progress, and I remember what a difference it was jumping in O'Shea's car, and it was almost effortless to do a 15-8.
I tell you what, getting back to the album though, they're doing a great job painting a picture, like a visual from an audio. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Other than I heard the person in the tower coughing.
That happens here on this show too. Nothing ever changes there.
I'll make sure I crack a beer in the microphone next.
All right.
time.
So was that the whole first side, Josh?
Yeah, that was the whole first side.
All right. So now we're flipping over to the B side, or is it called the second side, or what are they calling it on this album?
Let's see. What does it say here? It's spinning, so it's it says side 2.
All right. Go to side 2. Let's see what we got.
All right. Here.
You got to give another intro, Josh.
No. Yeah, I'll end up saying, keep all hands, arms, and legs inside the rod at all times.
Tighten up that submarine boat, boys. We're going for side 2.
Pull down on your belts and make sure that submarine
I
belts.
wonder why they called it side 1 and side 2. Back in the day, it was
A and B.
Wasn't
right?
A and B? The B sides were always like where the weird music was. Like the B side was always like that.
That's where
what I ever got out of the B side. The A side was like what the record company thought was going to be the hit, and then they let the band put their favorite song on the B side.
Right. Yeah, the A side was more for like the
commercial use.
Yeah, the commercial use in radio and stuff like that, and then they would let the artists have their articulate freedom on the B sides.
I thought the B side was for the satanic messages and stuff.
Yeah, play it backwards and stuff like that. Well, that'll be next week's podcast, Josh. We'll play this album backwards and see if we find any messages in there.
Actually, I know Tom Irvin offered to do it, but I mean, I have the stuff here. I may actually take some time this week and literally just record this whole thing over, so there's a digital copy before we hand it back over to Kevin. Yeah.
All right, cool. Let's get side 2 going here, and we'll get this done.
All right, Jersey Josh, back with your greatest hits from Wall Stadium. Side 2, here we go. And the awkward pause. There we go.
With the completion of time trials and qualifying races, the field is set, and the start of the Turkey Derby gets closer. Before the race has begun, a driver's meeting is held to remind everyone of the rules and regulations. Let's listen to pit steward Tom O'Rourke as he tells the competitors how the race is to be run.
All right, fellas, a couple of quick things. This gate's going to be open during a modified race, so if you come into pits, you're going to be able to go back out again. Use your heads when you go back out, all right? It's a tight racetrack. They're coming down here pretty quick, so make sure you judge yourself when you go back out. If you're 5 or 6 laps down, stay the hell in the pits, because it's not going to do you any good. But if there's a yellow out there and you want to come in and the race restarts right away and you can get back out there safely, go ahead. If you spin off the racetrack, try to get back on it straight away when it's safe. Don't just pull out in front of a couple of guys and, we're going to have a big mess out there. There's no reason for it. It's 150 laps, so you get a lot of time. And if you're in the infield, when you go back out there, you're a couple laps down anyway, at least 1 or 2. So give the guys that are racing out there, the guys that stayed on the track, give them a break. Now, the faster cars at Wall Stadium run on the outside, the slower cars on the inside. If that guy's on your bumper going down the back chute or the front chute, give him a break. Move down. If he can't take you, all right, fine. He'll let you know. He's going to go back in the corners, but damn it, give him a chance. Let him race. And then race the hell out of him if he gets you on the outside. I want you to do that, but at least let the guy know that if he's faster, he's going to get by you without going into the boards out there. Now, if you get a red light in the state of New Jersey, fellas, you have to come to a stop safely as you possibly can, all right? Now, that's a state law, and I expect that to be enforced. I don't want to see anybody running around here trying to get to the starting line or somewhere else. We're going to have a complete restart anyway, so it's not going to make any difference where you stop. You don't have to pull to the line. Just come to a stop safely so our emergency vehicles and our people can get out there to take care of the reason the red light come out. And that should be, understood. Under the yellow, if you spin out, you can come back in the race wherever you safely can. All right? If you spin, you cause the yellow, you don't have to go to the rear if the whole field hasn't passed you. Naturally, if the field's gone by, you're going to pick up the rear, and that's where you're going to stay. You don't go back where you were racing. You stay where you can get back in the race safely. On your start, now, when you get the green, do it coming off the fourth. Don't do it in the third turn. That's where we're having these problems. The guys are halfway around, they're punching it, and around they're going. So wait till you get into the straightaway. Wait till you're off the fourth, and then try it. It should be all right.
And now it's time to go racing. Last-minute adjustments are completed, and the cars are rolled into position on the grid. The drivers put on their safety equipment, climb inside of their seat, buckle themselves in, and wait for the order to fire their engines. In just a few moments, these 30 powerful machines will be bolting around the track at lightning-fast speeds, and although every possible safety precaution has been taken, there is still danger in racing. What are the
Now, I will say that drivers' meeting sounded, it hasn't changed a whole lot, has it?
No, it hasn't. I mean, Alan Brenner is a little bit more subtle with us, though, than that was. That was pretty hardcore there.
Yeah. I think that was straight. So, do you think, was that how he just was, or was that a little embellished because of being recorded, or what do you think?
I don't know, Josh. I was 6 years old when this drivers' meeting happened. I wasn't there, so it sounds like it was real to me. I don't think it was fake at all. I definitely think it was real. That's pretty much how Tom O'Rourke was, and you had to be stern back then. You're one man against 50 race car drivers, and you had to make a stand for yourself. I thought it was pretty cool. One rule I did notice that I never heard of: if you spin out and cause a yellow, you can just fade back into the field, and that's where you go. Where nowadays you bring out the yellow, you start in the rear of the field. I never heard that before. Maybe that was just a special rule for Turkey Derby itself. Did you catch that, Josh?
Yeah, no, I did pick up on that. I'm wondering if that also just had to do with maybe trying to keep things moving instead of throwing the yellow for everything.
Well, they did say if you spin and the yellow comes out.
The yellow comes. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
you
was
can
thinking
just fade safely back into where you're at. You don't have to drop to always the tail of the field.
That honestly may have just been to make the lineup easier.
Yeah.
Just like no, he got back in there, so that's where he's at. So just line him up and go because
and maybe that was to make these guys get moving again faster. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like instead of sitting there in the infield and acting like you can't start the car forever, just get spun around and get back up into the track. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm wondering if that would be a good thing to bring back. I
don't know, because I would merge pretty heavy. I don't think I'd worry about blending in safely. That's for sure.
Yes and no, because I mean you have a lot to lose if you go up and get T-boned or hit real bad. But they
must have changed the rule for a reason, Josh. And that's why we do it the way we do it now.
Maybe. I'm not arguing that entirely. I'm just saying that maybe we would have less of the guys sitting there pretending to start the car.
I also like how they picked the biggest race of the year at this racetrack to make this album. That's pretty cool. They definitely picked the Turkey Derby, which is cool.
Now, I don't know if you picked up on it, but they said it's the Saturday following Thanksgiving. But now we have a 3-day event.
Yeah, exactly. Back then, I don't think there was many other divisions even there.
Right. Yeah. Well, they were talking about 3 modified divisions essentially, right?
3 modified consies. No, I think it was just modified sports and maybe modern stocks. They don't do the 12 divisions like they do now.
Yeah. Which I kind of prefer the way I do wish the factory stocks could make the main show
on a Saturday.
Yeah. Only for the fact that more people would see it.
Right.
Because
the reason they put us on Friday and Sunday is to try to get more fans to come to watch it.
Yeah.
We're the bait for Friday and Sunday, where the modifieds are the bait for Saturday.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, everybody knows that I think factory stocks are the best show that you're going to get. So, yeah. But having us on Friday also allows us to a little bit of room to fix stuff for Sunday.
Right.
So.
It works out.
Yeah. All right.
Let's keep going on with the album.
All right, here we go. Has it gently
Safety precaution has been taken, there is still danger in racing. What are the driver's feelings as he sits and waits? Do they have much anxiety? That seems to depend on age and experience. Here is Gil Hearn's view.
I imagine every driver has a little bit of anxiety in him, or whatever, the adrenaline flows, as they say. I've been in it for so many years now that it doesn't really seem to make any difference to me, but it still bothers a lot of people.
And Charlie Kramer has this to say.
I think a driver that is beginning racing, I would say he's somewhat nervous because he's just beginning, but I think after you have 5 years of experience, you settle down and it still bothers you, but you have it under control.
Gentlemen, start your engines. It looks as though all the cars have started and are running. The car crews and all of the other personnel are clearing away from the track. Now the pace car's on the move. And the field, led by Jim Hendrickson in the X3 on the pole, is beginning to move out behind the pace car. Now they'll have one parade lap, which time you'll have an opportunity to take a look at the whole field, wave them off to a great race. Then we'll have the pace lap, and they'll go racing. Moving down now out of the fourth turn onto the front straightaway, it's the pace car, followed by Jim Hendrickson in the X3, and the number 12 of Gil Hearn right alongside of him. As they go by the starter stand, let's give them all a great big send-off. Now the pace car has turned off its flashing light, which means the drivers will be getting the green flag the next time by if the starter lights the way they're lined up. As they move down the back straight into the third turn, the pace car speeds up, pulling off the track. The field's picking up speed as they come out of the fourth turn. Here they come down the front. There's the green. Quickly, the X3 jumps out into the lead. Gil Hearn in the 12, right behind with Jeff Bodine third and George Kent fourth. Down the back into the third turn. It's Hearn in the 12, grabbing the lead away from Hendrickson. Off the fourth corner, down the front, it's Hearn and Hendrickson battling for the lead. Bodine and Kent right behind in third and fourth.
In preparing for a modified race such as the Turkey Derby, do the drivers plan a special strategy that they try to use when out on the track? Here's one view from John Blewett.
No, you mostly just take things as they come. You know, most of the drivers you're racing with, you know what you can do with the drivers. It's more or less a conditioned reflex after a while.
And Charlie Kramer adds this thought.
You just sort of have to play it by ear. Things happen fast.
We're 50 laps into the race. 50 down, 100 to go, and it's Hearn. Gil Hearn holding on to the lead. Gil jumped to the front of the first lap, and he hasn't been headed since. George Kent and the number 41 and the big red machine number 1 of Jeff Bodine are still duking it out for second place. First it's Kent leading Bodine, then it's Bodine getting by Kent, then it's Kent back again. Those two are really going at it. Fourth spot belongs to Richie Evans, and right behind him it's Tom McCann. Then comes Blewett, Terzamek, and Kramer all battling it out for 6th spot.
As they speed further and further into the race, the front-running drivers not only have to battle with each other for the lead, they have to carefully maneuver past the slower cars as they lap them. Here is Gil Hearn talking about passing techniques used at Wall Stadium.
Here you have a real tight course, and it's also very fast. So you have to be ready at all times. To pass on the outside is real hard here because everybody runs out to the fence. If you're on a half-mile racetrack or a little bigger track, they'll come off the corner and you have plenty of room to either pass on the inside or the outside. But most of your passing here has to be done on the outside. And when cars run the straightaway on the outside, it's very hard to get by. You only can pass right in the corners.
Scott, what did you think about that passing? Think that's
what's that?
What do you think about what he had to say about passing and
passing on the outside?
Well, that and just about the track. I mean, do you think that holds true, or do you think it
did back then. I don't know about so much now. You do see guys trying to pass on the inside a lot more than the outside nowadays. I did hear two pretty famous names in that too, George Kent and Jeff Bodine. That was two big famous names that were down for the Turkey Derby. I do remember George Kent winning in that 41 car, so that I don't know if this is the year he actually won in or not. I guess we're going to see here in a little bit. But George Kent did win the Turkey Derby one year driving that 41 car out of upstate New York.
Now, I mean, I think that one thing that definitely holds true is that it's, and we heard it from Tom O'Rourke, we heard it from, I believe it was Gil there. It's a tight track, and
it is tight.
I mean, I guess because that was where I started.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of okay, sure, but then watching that tour race last year, last May, and how many wrecks that those guys had. Yeah, it's a tight track. It's a damn tight track. I mean,
you got to understand too, Josh. These tracks were built in the 50s. The cars were so slow then. Even what we're listening to now, that track wasn't designed for race cars like that. They were designed for coupes that only went so fast, that had skinny tires on them, fenders. You know what I'm saying? Not these high-powered modifieds with the big wide 15-inch wheels on them.
Yeah. I can completely see that. If you look at the...
And you're right, Josh. I mean, you didn't race many tracks I did, but as soon as you go to a different track, a lot of times what you realize is how wide other racetracks are compared to this. And then when I started racing dirt tracks are even wider yet than asphalt tracks.
I remember those couple times down at Bridgeport. I know we didn't have to, but you could go all the way out to the flag stand if you wanted to.
Right.
I mean, and that was 20 cars wide.
And that's what I mean. A lot of people say dirt track racing's better. Part of the reason why it is better is the tracks themselves are just better. They're wider. There's more room to race, you know?
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty neat to hear them talk about that and relate it to, what I've noticed and seen in my short time involved with it. But, yeah, so, all right, we'll move along to the next part, all right?
Let's do it.
And sounds like a MacGyver theme a little
this
bit.
time by, Gil Hearn will complete 100 laps. Hearn in the number 12 continues to be your leader, 2/3 of the way into the race. George Kent in the number 41 is close behind Hearn in second spot. Richie Evans and Tom McCann are wheel to wheel fighting for third. Then it's John Blewett Jr., Charlie Kramer Jr., Tony Siscone, and Wayne Anderson all in a bunch. This is modified racing at its best. These men are really putting on another great race here at Wall Stadium.
Every lap of a short track modified race is filled with high-speed, close-quartered maneuvering. This requires that the drivers have both strength and endurance. Many think that driving on a short track is more demanding than on a long track. Here's Charlie Kramer's view.
Any short racetrack you have to drive differently than long racetracks. You really drive a short racetrack harder than you do a long racetrack. Long racetrack, I feel, is easier.
Jumping to the front on lap 1, Gil Hearn has led this race. He's been challenged frequently, but each time he's held off the challenger. But now, as he completes lap 147, he's got to be concerned not only about staying in front of the field, Gil has to be careful that he doesn't get tangled up in one of the slower cars as he goes by him. He also hopes that his car continues to run smoothly, as it's done all afternoon. And now, with 148 laps down, it's the number 12 of Gil Hearn out of turn 2 down the back. Into 3, it's Gil Hearn out front, off of 4 toward the line. He gets the white flag, one more lap. Gil Hearn on the last lap of the Turkey Derby, into turn 1, off of 2, down the back, half a lap to go. Take it easy, going by those slower cars, being very careful. Into 3, he's coming out of turn 4 toward the finish line, and there's the checkered flag. And so this edition of the annual Turkey Derby is now history, with Gil Hearn the winner. Let's go down to the starters platform for the presentation of the winner's trophy by track promoter Mrs. Jenny Nichol.
I'd like to congratulate Gil Hearn for the third time on the Turkey Derby. It was fantastic. He held in there all the time. It was a great race, and of course, Mr. Durkin had a little to do with it, too.
A whole lot. Well, Tom, we made it. My chest. I just want to thank the good Lord. Goodyear tires, my owner, and my mechanic.
Hey, we're going to give the winner a kiss. Ah.
The racing has ended. Cars and equipment are being packed up, and the racing teams are heading out of the pits. The flags and banners have been taken down. Soon the last light will be turned out, and another chapter in the history of action at Wall Stadium will be closed. With the ending of each season, the greats of the past are joined by new stars. So, to the list of drivers who, over the years, have excited the fans at Wall, men such as Bill Pfister, Bill Chevalier, Parker Bone, Tommy Elliott, and Bill McCarthy, we add the names of today's thrill makers. But our story of Wall Stadium would not be complete unless we cited the most important people of all, you, the racing fans. Your interest, loyalty, and enthusiasm are why Wall is so widely renowned as a center for auto racing. It is you who have made racing at Wall Stadium a New Jersey tradition. Gil Hearn puts it this way.
The fans here are really enthused with racing. Most of them you'll find have been coming here probably as long as I have, and a lot of them longer. The families grew up here. You see the grandparents and you see the parents, and you'll see the children. I've watched children grow up to be men here and start racing, and it's a real family thing. It's a real tradition. They come year after year, week after week, the same people will be in the same seats. You can count on it.
The lights have been turned out. Quiet has settled over the stadium until next spring. But when April arrives, once again, the sound that will be heard on Saturdays is the roar of powerful engines, the modified Call of Wall.
And his life is saved by the thickness of tissue paper.
That was good. That was good. Gil Hearn hit it right on the head. Right on the head at the end. You know, me and Scott, we grew up there. We met a lot of good friends there, and people race. Scott raced. My dad raced. My kids are the fourth generation of our family to race there. So,
wow.
Gil Hearn hit it right on the head there. A lot of tradition there.
And just like today, Gil Hearn and Victory Lane thanking God, Goodyear, and Gatorade, just like they do nowadays, you know?
Yeah, a few things haven't changed. That actually went a lot faster than I was expecting it to.
I tell you what, I learned one thing from the album. It was pretty much what I expected, but I didn't know it was the Turkey Derby. I thought it was like during the whole year they did clips of races. I didn't know it brought you from like the very beginning of Turkey Derby weekend to the very end of it. I didn't know it covered Turkey Derby. I thought it was pretty cool that it did cover Turkey Derby. And it was cool to see that Gil Hearn won, and it was his third Turkey Derby win. And it was also cool seeing the promoter and the owner of the track, Jenny Nichol and Victory Lane, doing the interview down there and presenting the awards.
Were they the ones? I'm sorry, Tim. Go ahead.
Remember she used to sit down by the ticket booth and watch all the people come in and thank all the people.
Yeah.
Every week she was hands on, and then during the races you could always see her sitting in the window up above there watching.
Right.
She was always full blown on what's going on.
That was pretty cool. I'm glad we did this. It was a cool little listening party. And Josh, thanks for getting the record player set up. I know that was no easy task. I also want to thank Kevin Ayers for giving us the album. Because it was definitely cool to listen to. It's something that we always heard about around the racetrack, and it was cool to finally sit down with you guys and listen to it.
Who was giving the kiss?
What's that?
Who was giving the kiss? I know Gil Hearn received
probably some type of trophy queen back then. Who knows? Could have been from Goodyear. Could have been from God. Could have been from Gatorade. We don't know. Could have been Miss Wall Stadium. Could have been Miss Turkey Derby.
Okay.
I would like to know who it was and where she's at nowadays. That'd be pretty cool.
Didn't somebody take a picture of recently of one of the trophy girls today versus what back when?
I think that was Lisa Vaughn.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I vaguely remember.
Girl.
What was it, Scott?
Linda Vaughn. Yeah, Linda Vaughn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dude, what a top 10 that was. Jeff
Oh, my God.
Bodine, George Kent, Richie Evans, and then they got John Blewett and Tony Siscone, Gil Hearn, Charlie Kramer. All
The best of the day, and it was cool that the Wall Stadium guys were able to hold off the invading national racers as well.
I'll say, as late as I was to the party, I still recognize so many of those names, whether it be just because we talk about the history and who some of the most winningest drivers and stuff like that, or just because the family is still involved at Wall and racing, whether it be kids or grandkids or whatever. I mean, you talk about Kramer, and you had Blewett, another family. I didn't hear the Barneys in there, but I mean, you figure Blake Barney now being one of the youngest.
Well, Tony Siscone was driving that car.
Okay, yeah. But I mean, just it's within the family, and to see Blake do so well now, and because sometimes the kids just don't have, either they don't have the interest or they don't have the talent, and it's really cool to see someone like Blake Barney who does love it and does really well, and keeps things going along, just like with the Blewetts or whoever. But that was definitely a lot of fun. I really think I'm going to get around to trying to digitize that this week before I drop it back off to Scott's garage on top of the 7X. Which that was probably the weirdest part. I had messaged Scott. What was that this morning? Saying, "Hey, I can pick up the record," and he's like, "Yeah, I left the door unlocked. It's on top of this, on top of the 7X." I'm like, "You didn't leave it on a workbench. You left it on top of the race car."
Well, this way, when you walked in the door, it was right there.
Yeah. Oh man, and I'll tell you, going in there made me miss racing that much more. I mean,
okay.
Go ahead, Tim.
I'm sorry. No, I didn't know you were. All right. 1 to 10. What were your expectations to what the record actually was?
I mean, for the time, I thought it was very professionally well done, and it still sounds crystal clear for that record being that old. So it's definitely held up in the test of time. Plus, it proves Kevin Ayers really takes care of his stuff. Because I know, Tim, we've watched records come and go in our household, and they would get scratched up and broke.
Oh God, with the kids
and everything else.
My girls, we got a CD that we get a day out of it. I'm happy.
Yeah, so I liked it. I thought it was crisp. I thought it was different. It definitely fit the time. That's for sure. It definitely fit the time period. I thought it was described well. I mean, I'd give it a 6 or a 7.
I thought it was those were black frisbees when I was little. No, I didn't really know what to expect. But I was actually, I guess if I had to pin down what I expected it to be, I would have said it was going to be a lot of just audio of modifieds driving by and engines and stuff like that, which there was quite a bit of that, and then maybe interviews with drivers here and there about stuff like Scott said. I thought it was going to be kind of maybe spread out through the year. I didn't know it was going to be a narrative over Turkey Derby.
Yeah, the title's a little misleading. It could have been like the Call of Turkey Derby or something like Call of Wall. I know Call of Wall sounds good. Call of Wall Turkey Derby weekend or something like that. Turkey Derby, whatever year Turkey Derby it was. You know what I'm saying? Turkey Derby 79 or something like that.
Marketing is hard. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it. I really did, and I actually might take another listen through. But like I said, I'm going to try to digitize that and maybe upload it and hopefully not get any copyright issues. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. And do you think with the access that we have today to videos, like even for example, I'm contributing with the factory stock videos, especially.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Do you think something like this record would be feasible today? I mean, I know it's obviously doable.
No, I don't.
But it would.
The record days are long gone. They're gone and past. But I think what we're even doing with this podcast and what you did with filming all the factory stock races, I think 30 years from now there might be a group of people viewing it just like we're viewing this or listening to this album right now.
You gotta remember, 30 years from now, 60-year-old Kyle Fisco's got his kids go, let me find that RPM podcast and tell you how I won. You know, nobody's a history and everything. You know.
Yeah, no, it makes. I just wasn't sure if not so much the format because you could do it digitally and make a almost like a podcast like we do, but with everybody covering everything and you can get information so fast. I don't think it would be a feasible thing, but it would almost be kind of
people
cool
would listen to it once and that would be it. You know, back in the day, they would listen to records over and over and over and loan them out and trade them and everything else. Those days are long gone.
Now, with that, do you think there's anybody that listens to any episode of the podcast more than once?
Sometimes I do.
Yeah,
I've had people tell me they listen to it more than once. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I listen to my other podcast. So I'll listen to a Dale Jr. podcast more than once because sometimes you just don't grasp it all or you get sidetracked and you're paying attention to something else. Because like I said, I listen to it when I drive my truck. I might be in traffic and paying attention to something else.
Yeah.
I might be backing into someone's driveway and miss a point that I want to hear again. So sometimes it's a real good podcast. I will listen to it 2 or 3 times. And each time you listen to it, you pick up something you might have missed the first time you listened to it.
Okay. It's like a lot of movies. People say you got to see it 1 or 2 times to get the whole idea of it. You know,
right.
Of everything.
Oh,
Two podcasts that come out of my mind that I've listened to more than once. I listened to the Gary Ballou one with Dale Jr.
Right.
And then the one with the Lanier guy.
Right.
The drug smoke. That one was so good. I probably listened to that one like 3 or 4 times.
And sometimes I might go 4 or 5 months and say, man, I remember that podcast, and I'll listen to it again just to, refresh my memory on it,
Okay, yeah.
It's no different than watching a movie. Every time that freaking Shawshank Redemption movie comes on, I watch it every single time, and I swear to God, every time I watch it, I see something new or different, or I don't think I've ever sat down watched it from beginning to end in its entirety. Every time I tune into it, it seems like a different part, you know what I'm saying?
Okay, yeah. I seem to always catch it when he's...
Same with the Godfather movies. I'll still watch all of them when they're on,
No, I seem to always run into Shawshank when he's playing the record, oddly enough.
Right, yeah.
That seems to be when I come across it, but...
For the longest time, I had never seen the very, very beginning of Shawshank, like him actually getting arrested and getting brought to Shawshank,
Okay, yeah.
That place is literally right in front of the Mansfield Speedway.
Right.
Is that who won?
All right, guys. Well, it's 10 o'clock already, and we just wanted to do a little listening party here with you guys and play this album. So we're going to sign off here if that's okay with you, Josh.
I was thinking we could do a quick what have we learned, if that's all right.
Yeah, all right. Well, what have I learned was that the Call Wall album is definitely more about Turkey Derby than the whole season itself. It's definitely Turkey Derby weekend, and I learned that it was very, very, very well done.
Yeah, I will agree that, especially for that time period, that audio came out really good, and like you said, it was really professionally produced. So, yeah, kudos to I'll look at it when I can get up and see it again. Whoever made it, yeah. Tim, what did you learn?
That basically the same thing. It stood the test of time. It was good. I wish they would have said what year Turkey Derby that was.
Yeah,
yeah. What number that would have been cool. It was good. That I liked the way in the beginning they explained to it, how the track was built and everything. And a lot of people don't know that when that track was first built, it was considered one of the state-of-the-art speedways. Before that was, gravel pits and junkyards they were racing in.
Oh yeah,
so that was
yeah.
So that and then I hope people that listen that didn't realize that, Turkey Derby's got such history. Just the names of the drivers that were in that race. You know what I mean?
Well, and if you go forward through time, I mean, I've looked at past, Turkey Derby entries, and you see names like Jimmy Spencer, and but also just when they went through their list of between like IndyCar and NASCAR or whatever NASCAR was at the time, whether it be Winston or the Grand National, or it all depends on the year that it actually was. But yeah, that was. I mean, it gives you just a glimpse of the importance of that track.
Yeah.
So
the history of it. The only thing they didn't talk about was food. No food in there.
Oh, yeah, how dare they? Anything else, Tim, that you learned?
Yeah, you're all right, Tim. They explained everything, the smell of the race cars and the waiting in line to get in. They didn't mention the concession stands.
And a lot of people remember, Josh, it might be before your time, but Scott, you probably mentioned it on here before that. Wall Stadium was famous. They used to have like a cheeseburger would come in a foil cheeseburger bag, and they would go in the steamer. Like you would walk up and open up the drawer, and they'd be full of cheeseburgers. It was self-serve, like it was already all cooked.
Okay.
They were. If you got a fresh one, they were good. It's like almost like a big White Castle burger. It was steamed, so the roll was all nice and hot, and the cheese was all melted.
But the self-serve part, that's almost like when when I used to go to like the Roy Rogers at like the Turnpike rest stop, and they would just have the racks, and you just pick out it's labeled as whatever, and
these were in drawers. They were like regular drawers that you opened up.
That's weird, but I wish I had seen it. All right.
I bet the old school guys that listen to this don't know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I'll get emails, I'm sure. So let's see. Today I learned that for a great race, Wall Stadium is the place.
Yeah. We gotta cut that soundbite out. Use that.
I learned that crotch belts are apparently submarine belts. I learned that the music producer for Charlie's Angels and MacGyver apparently did the music for this album. I learned that the TD winner gets a kiss, but not from Bill Venturini, so that makes Scott happy.
Thank God.
And I learned that record players are still awesome. I mean, this is getting off the topic of racing, but if you think about how the record is, one, pressed, and can maintain such a fine, groove, especially with all those ridges and bumps that actually make the waveform. The whole thing is honestly kind of crazy, and it's fun.
Josh, I remember the 33 album, what we just played was a 33, right?
33 and a third, yes.
Yeah, and then there was a 45. I remember the 45s.
Mm-hmm.
What was a 78?
Weren't they? They were smaller, right?
They were even smaller yet, right?
Yeah,
maybe they were like a single or something. But no, the 45s were singles, right? This one song.
I thought they were in the middle. They were in the middle of the other two.
Yeah.
I thought the 78s were like 6 or 8 inches across. It's not exactly my era, and I'm aware of that. But I
just remember there was a 78. I remember the full album was a 33. The single with a B-side, so it's 2 songs, was a 45. But I didn't remember what a 78 was.
Yeah, I'll have to look. It's been a while since I do enjoy this stuff. I just don't know.
That's a little homework for you. I expect an answer by next week. All right, guys, it's 10 o'clock at night. I really enjoyed that. I really got to get going now. So that wraps up episode 175 of the RPM podcast, and thanks for joining us.
Have a good one. We'll see you next time.
Wash your hands.